Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University. Welcome to Outrider 55. The paragraph. Yes, we continue our writing series, and this is incredibly exciting. It can also be a bit depressing too. Let me explain. All of us write absolutely dreadful paragraphs. It's just embarrassing. But the gift of paragraphing is through the drafting process. They start to get shiny. They start to get beautiful. The gift of a paragraph is it becomes the spine of your argument. But the paragraph suffers from some pretty dreadful teaching aids. And when I was doing the research for this Outrider, look, most of the material was pretty shocking. And it is basically the leftover of how we were taught at primary school. It's assumed that how we learned how to construct a paragraph when we were 8, 9 and 10 somehow has relevance to an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, and indeed a doctoral program. That the paragraph at primary school is the same as the paragraph we use to write a PhD. But the point is, the paragraphs that we write at 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, they are different. They have different functions in our lives professionally and personally. The paragraph is plural. So we learn to write by writing, you know that is a truth, but we also learn to paragraph by paragraphing. So we need to continually enhance what we do. During this writing series, I've made an intentional point of occupying lots of different roles, a student of writing, but also a professional writer who writes journalism as much as writes her scholarly monographs and articles and so forth, but also a teacher and a supervisor. But I hope I've always made clear through this series that one of the hats I'm also wearing is an examiner. So I'm exploring what the paragraph tells an examiner about you and about your research. That's what we're doing today. You see, paragraphing tells me a great deal about who you are as a researcher. Yes, it allows me to see so much about the PhD program in which you were enrolled. I see a great deal of your candidature through your paragraph construction. So let me explain what I mean here, because that's a bold statement, Tara. That's a bold statement. But colleagues, if you use a short paragraph, and can I say the overwhelming majority of students start writing very, very short paragraphs, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences. And what that does is that fragments your argument. So it means when you're reading work where there's lots of short paragraphs, it's fragmented, it's all over the place, like what's going on? So it's very difficult to configure a streamlined, precise argument. Now, the proxies here are crucial. Students that write short paragraphs haven't read enough. They're writing short paragraphs because they haven't got enough to write. They haven't got enough to say. They haven't got the scope and the scale that we require of a PhD. So they're not writing a lot in their paragraphs because they haven't done a lot of reading. And that means they just can't extend the ideas. They don't have enough to say. And this problem, look, it doesn't start with short paragraphs. It starts with problematic reading, not reading enough, not understanding what's being read, and poor note-taking. And the trouble is all these very important academic literacies we don't talk about, but we see the consequences of them in a short paragraph. Then, of course, we have the long paragraph people. They're rare, but they're also incredibly spectacular. And some of the best students I've ever supervised had this tendency to write these incredibly long paragraphs. And I'm talking paragraphs that went for days. Paragraphs that went for pages. 3 pages for a paragraph. Now, these are very different students. These are students that love reading. And in fact, they're almost a bit frightened of writing. You've got to sort of wean them off the reading so that they write something. And so by the time they're ready to write, they sort of gush. Let me overshare my excitement with you. So we've got incredibly long paragraphs. The way we diagnose this, by the way, is we help the students configure a spine of an argument. So their weakness, their challenge, what long paragraphs are a proxy for, is the inability to carefully construct an argument. So these students we help by working strongly with their topic sentences, so making sure before they gush, that they actually have a bit of a spine written on a piece of paper where these are the sort of 5 paragraph vibes I'm going to do. So they plan out their paragraphs, and so they know where they start and where they stop. Now, as we've worked out, paragraphing shares a great deal with Goldilocks and the 3 bears, okay? Some paragraphs are too short and you're just bouncing about an argument. Some paragraphs are way too long, and in the middle is just about right. And that's what we're going to talk about in the Outrider this week. What is the characteristic of a just right paragraph? And today's structure is incredibly simple. We're going to talk about what is a paragraph, but then the second half is how we improve a paragraph for a PhD student and indeed all of us as researchers. So we're talking specifically here about what paragraphing is and does in a research culture. Now, as I was reviewing the literature on the paragraph this week, I realised how truly terrible it is, and I went right back to those how-to guides. And remember, a couple of my degrees are in education, so, I was put through teacher education and I had to sort of learn these how-to guides about how to teach paragraphing. And it's terrible stuff. It really is very boring and terrible stuff. Just dreadful. But I think because it's so basic, that's why paragraphing remains a challenge in a PhD program, because it was taught so poorly. And we were taught with such simplicity, and we've never had professional development since then. Think about it. In your undergraduate degree, did you ever do a session on paragraphing? In your master's degree, did you do a lecture or a seminar on paragraphing? Well, in this doctoral program at CDU, you are doing an Outrider on paragraphing. That is what we're talking about today. So what is a paragraph? Well, let's start with the definition, and that is, a paragraph is a series of sentences. Now, the word series really matters there because I'm talking about series as in a series circuit. So if one of the sentences doesn't work, the entire paragraph doesn't work. So paragraphs are incredibly important because they move you through an argument, and you can lose a reader at any point in that journey. Now, okay, paragraph, here we go. The first sentence of a paragraph is called a topic sentence. These are very, very difficult to write. And what they capture is, in one sentence, the introduction, the information that the reader needs to understand what is going to happen in this paragraph. Now, this is often discipline specific. It also can be different in terms of the component of the thesis we're talking about. So are we in a literature review? Are we in methods? Are we in a high theory discussion, right? So the topic sentence does vary depending on the oeuvre or the genre or the positioning in the research project. Now, the point of that paragraph could be, we are presenting a very significant data point here, or a data set. Some disciplines use quotations, some do not. I think all disciplines should, as we talked about last week, but I lost that battle, that ship has sailed. But all disciplines really use paraphrasing in some form and use referencing in some form. So we've got our topic sentence. We're then moving into the presentation of something. So it may be a data point, a data set, it may be a quotation, it may be a crucial argument that is made in the literature. There could be some statistics, something there. So some content is presented from the second sentence in your paragraph. Right. Now, we're doing incredibly well. We're now halfway through the paragraph. You've presented paraphrasing with great effectiveness. Okay, halfway through the paragraph. We've now hit your interpretation of the first half of the paragraph. This is significant. So all your previous sentences, topic sentence, first half of the paragraph, were pretty neutral. We were paraphrasing, we were giving somebody the benefit of the doubt and presenting their ideas neutrally and carefully and respectfully. Okay, here's the argument that we're offering. Thanks a lot. Now, after that first half is presented, it is time to shape your argument. And that is the second half of a paragraph. So we're moving from paraphrasing somebody else to your interpretation of that information. Now, you've got to write some pretty crunchy sentences in the second half of a paragraph. And can I say the hardest sentence I think any of us ever have to write is the final sentence of a paragraph, okay? Because what you're doing is you've interpreted what's going on in the paragraph, and now you've got to smoothly lead your reader from that paragraph and your interpretation to the next paragraph and the next topic sentence. So the last sentence of every paragraph is a pivot sentence because it's pivoting you to the next stage of your analysis. So as you can see, what a great paragraph does is it opens out an argument, closes it down, and opens it out again. Now, I've often described a paragraph as a waterfall. It's beautiful, it's natural, you can't see the join. The challenge is they are incredibly difficult to write. As you can see, what I've just articulated, what a research paragraph does, that is incredibly difficult to do. Incredibly difficult to do. But because we've never taught it to you as overtly as I've just done there, no one's really sure what they're doing. So remember, topic sentence, present relatively neutrally some data sets, some information, then from the middle of the paragraph, move to your interpretation of the first half of the paragraph, then the final sentence moves you on in your argument. Okay, so the waterfall is one metaphor. Another metaphor I use to teach academic writing is a series of steps. So each paragraph is a step that moves you forward through your argument. So if it's useful to you, the whole point of a paragraph is to provide the spine for the argument, but to also to move the spine forward, to walk the spine. That's what we're doing here. So that's the easy stuff, right? You've now got the construction of a paragraph. If you're out, you're off to have a cup of coffee now, rock and roll. What I'll talk about, though, in the second half of this Outrider is how we specifically improve the paragraphs within a research life and research career. Right. And of course, I'm particularly putting on my examiner's hat. Okay, so I know exactly what I'm looking for in paragraphs and I know what they mean as an examiner. So let me open that cage and share it with you. So firstly, paragraphs allow you to make connections. A characteristic of students who are in trouble with their research is that they can't connect up ideas. What's happening, and can I say about half of the research that I read every day is this. So this is very, very common. So if this is you, don't worry about it. Everybody does this. But your ideas are incredibly fragmented. So I'm reading and going, we're bouncing around like a pinball here. What is going on? And that's because your paragraphs are too short and they're not structured carefully. So it means because you're not constructing your paragraph carefully, ideas are bouncing about on you. They're not grounded in a structured argument. So when you write a great paragraph, you are able to build connections in your research and your reader can follow you through those connections. 2, great PhD paragraphs demonstrate your ability to communicate ideas to others. In many ways, dissemination is all that matters in research, because if you write something and people don't read it, what's the point? But a powerful paragraph is able to grab your research by the scruff of the neck and connect it to an audience. Paragraphs go, here's this stuff, isn't this interesting? Brilliant. So you make the connections between your ideas and then those paragraphs allow you to connect to your readers. Yeah. 3. Oh, this is crucial. Great paragraphs transform ideas into knowledge. You're a really bright person, I know that. And you have some really, really great ideas. I know that too. But a PhD is not about good ideas. It's not a significant original contribution to ideas. It's a significant original contribution to knowledge. So paragraphs allow you to take what is a pretty good idea, fantastic, but then workshop it. Workshop it through a paragraph construction so that you render the idea in the topic sentence knowledge by the end of it. 4, we learn through writing paragraphs. Oh wow, this is so true. I didn't know it when I was a young scholar, but this is so important. What paragraphs do is they confirm the learning that we have achieved. If you are able to write a considered, balanced paragraph on a topic, that confirms that you are in control of the data set, you are in control of the research that you are presenting to others. Good paragraphing demonstrates control over learning. We learn to write by writing, no doubt about that, but we also learn to learn by writing. And let me just share something from a very old writer that changed my life, really. Because you see, I realised all of a sudden that writing is very different from thinking. They're very, very different acts. And so often, what we can express in writing through a paragraph transcends what we think we know. So we write ourselves, we write our argument, and we actually transcend what we think. Amazing. 5, if you can write a great paragraph, you can control information. Information literacy is a seriously under-discussed skill in higher education. It breaks my heart on a daily basis. But of course, information literacy is the foundation for everything we do in schools, probably the foundation of citizenship, to be frank, and also absolutely crucial to what happens in a doctoral program. So, for me, a proxy that you know how to gather, present, interpret, and disseminate information is through the quality of your paragraph construction. So paragraph construction is a proxy for your information literacy level. Yep. So if you are able to construct a great paragraph, it demonstrates that you have control of the information within it. And look, we've talked a lot about Goldilocks at the start of this particular Outrider. And look, as we talk about, short paragraphs show the students just don't know enough. They just don't know enough. Long paragraphs show students know a lot, but they haven't got control over how to shape it and make it meaningful. So paragraphing requires intellectual discipline, and yes, it requires intellectual literacies, academic literacies, information literacies. 6, a great paragraph, oh, this is crucial. A great paragraph confirms your ability to synthesize information, but to also move from synthesis to original ideas. We all need to, but you need to synthesize incredibly difficult stuff in a PhD. You are reading at the top end of town, and you've got to read at that level and then synthesize that in your PhD. Now, synthesizing in and of itself is a really tough skill. Paraphrasing is a really, really difficult skill, and we need to acknowledge that. But also, you see, as we've talked about with the paragraph, you move from synthesizing ideas in the first half to drawing out to your originality. So your paragraph construction confirms that you know the difference between paraphrasing and synthesis and original interpretations and ideas. And of course, that's what a PhD is. 7, paragraphing shows that you can justify your argument. Again, crucial one as I've got older too. Anyone can have an opinion. Think about what's going on in the world at the moment. Anybody can have an opinion. A PhD has absolutely nothing to do with an opinion. It is a well-crafted argument that is founded in knowledge. But also, you've got to have the capacity to draw out and build an argument, and that is what a paragraph does. Sentence can't make an argument. A paragraph can start to build your interpretation. An opinion is great, but really strong paragraphs offer an argument for a reader's consideration, moving from opinion and interpretation to knowledge. And the scaffolding is in place. I think that's why I love paragraphs so much, is we're presenting our ideas for assessment and we are leaving the scaffolding in place so people can see how we've developed these ideas. 8. Oh yeah, great paragraphs keep us on track. I read a lot of students' work and I read a lot of my own work, and I'll just talk about myself. When I read a lot of my work, I go, what am I doing? Where am I? What point am I trying to make here? What is going on, Tara? What's going on? And that's because my paragraphing is not elegant. It's all a bit fragmented and a bit of a mess. Paragraphs present the pathway to and through an argument. So we read the topic sentence and we can see the trajectory of your analysis, whether we're talking about a 1,000-word piece of journalism or 100,000 words in a PhD. But you see what happens, we're able to be stepped through an argument. So paragraphs answer the question, what am I doing here? What am I arguing at this point? A paragraph gives you that information. 9. Again, very important as I've got older, interestingly enough. Great paragraph construction shows the alternative ways of thinking. What makes research so valuable, I think, is that it presents all the alternative perspectives that are available to us. And we acknowledge respectfully, with integrity, the scholars who disagree with us. So we present the alternative ways of thinking with kindness, with decency, with compassion, and then make an argument and perhaps show with integrity the dissonance between the ideas of others and our ideas. So if we honestly present the views of others through paraphrasing, then our case is strengthened by recognising the strong views and ways of thinking from other humans and what we offer to the conversation. And 10. A paragraph confirms the value of interpretation. E.H. Carr in 1961 stated, quote, "History means interpretation." End of quote. That sentence changed my life. History is not one damn fact after another. It's not a vibe. It's not a narrative. It's not restating the stories we've been told all our lives. History means interpretation. But biology means interpretation. Physics means interpretation. Criminology means interpretation. The meat of every paragraph is your interpretation. We can take the supposed truth or the data point or the data set or the field work, and what we're doing in the second half of the paragraph is we're doing something with it. We're bending it, we're shaping it, we're making it shiny, we're taking it for a walk. That's what interpretation is. All disciplines mean interpretation, and we demonstrate that interpretation through every single paragraph that we write. Paragraphs are so special because they connect thinking, writing, and knowledge development. They give a purpose to our writing. They give a propulsion to our writing. A paragraph translates what could be our personal views, our vibe, and renders it meaningful through knowledge and interpretation. So, what a paragraph does for an examiner is it confirms your intellectual discipline. Each paragraph is like a mini version of your thesis in a few sentences. It must be bold, it must have a direct and clear opening, that's your topic sentence, but it also must have that smooth, pivotal conclusion, a pivot that moves you through knowledge. It also has to exhibit your ability, your skills in a series of variables that we're looking for as an examiner. So, can you organise information into clear, discrete parts? Can you paraphrase well? Can you interpret the research of others with integrity and rigour and precision? And also, can you show originality? Can you demonstrate how you have built your originality from and through the scaffold of others? So as you can see, just about everything that an examiner is looking for in your PhD, we find in your paragraph. It is that Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbed trail through your argument. I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.